Hello and welcome to TechFunnel.com's interview series. My name is Danny White, and today we have the opportunity to talk to Jeff Butler. Jeff is a speaker, author, and passionate millennial who helps organizations improve their relationships with millennial employees. You may have seen him on Forbes, USA Weekly, or on the TED stage. A native Californian and raised in Silicon Valley, he graduated from UC Berkeley with a degree in computer science. During his time in college, he was training for the Olympics under three-time Olympian Tor Gustafsson, but left that pursuit because software engineering paid more. Unlike other experts on millennials, Jeff has been in the trenches of what it means to be a millennial and what it takes to retain and keep them engaged. With Jeff's versatile background, he has addressed companies including Amazon and Google, as well as thousands of professionals across North America. Welcome, Jeff. Thank you so much for joining us today.
No, I appreciate it. Yeah, and the intro was great there.
Awesome. All right. So you have built your reputation and your brand partly by helping companies understand, attract, retain, and engage with millennials. What was the impetus for choosing to study and present on this group of people?
Oh, boy. Well, I actually tried my first speaking business, which was on talking about smartphones. And that's not a very viable business model, as I thought it was really interesting. I did a TED Talk on it. Mm-hmm. Not a lot of people were willing to pay for it. And so during one of my talks, someone from the back of the room was like, hey, you're a millennial. You should talk about millennials because that's a big problem. And I'm like, wait, there's like a big problem with me, or there's like a big problem in the industry? Mm-hmm. That's actually when I first started looking into the dynamic between generations and how it all unfolds. And from there, I just kind of got swept away on it because, as you mentioned during the intro, or I think before the call, is there's not many millennials out there who are talking about millennials. And that just by itself is a unique selling proposition. And the weird part is when you actually have millennials who are talking about it, they're like, well, have social media in the workplace, instant messenger. It's like kind of this immature conversation. And I'm like, well, what's the deeper problem, right? What are things like, that's very superficial. Like, let's boil it down a little bit, right? And so I was more after those deeper questions on there. And that's sort of how I started to grow my business from millennials, but also generations and more future focused on there, which I'm sure we'll touch into a little bit. But that's kind of how I got started.
That's awesome. Kudos to that person in the back of the room that said, hey, you should do this. So there is research out there that really states that by 2025, 75% of the entire global workforce will be made up of those people born between 1980 and 2000. How do you think business leadership will look and feel different with more millennials in the workplace? We'll have like millennial managers, millennial directors, millennial, that age range of people who are directing other people.
I don't think it'll be much different. And a lot of people are looking for an answer of like, it's going to be revolutionary. Everyone's going to have pool tables and ping pong. It's like, no. The big problem at hand is that when people think about millennials, they just think of a younger group. They don't say, where's the cutoff? Where are the sort of cohorts? And what people need to realize is that over time, people's maturity changes, and so does politics, trends, those kinds of things.
Right.
Will it be like, from a leadership perspective, I don't think it's going to be that much different. The only thing I can only probably put money on is the more transparency aspect. You have platforms like Glassdoor, which are really pushing companies now to have that level of transparency, but it comes at a double-edged sword, because if you have a company and I don't like you, I can write, if I'm competing with you, I can write a review on your Glassdoor. That's not true. But someone who's looking at the company can see that. And that's the same thing with Yelp. They're also called the small business mafia. So you have a lot of these review platforms that are increasing transparency. So I think they'll hold leaders to a higher sense of authenticity. But at the same time, I don't think it changes the fundamental side of leadership or management, because those are sort of psychology things that people naturally propensity to do. It's like there was, I don't know if you know Ken Blanchard, the women manager. Yeah. So he talks about one of his speeches is that, there are a lot of leadership trends, and like there's an average like age for a new leadership trend. And it's around like 8 years or something. So they kind of go in cycles, but overall, there's a human psychology aspect to it. And if people lose track of that and get caught up in the generations, they lose track of what it really means to be human in the workplace, which is ultimately what we're all striving to do.
So we're kind of living in this age where more younger people are like starting their own companies, and wanting to be managers and CEOs and, generally wanting to just build and live life on their own terms. What type of a social contract goes with, millennials at the top, so to speak? Are there things that people from the baby boomer or Gen X generation should be understanding when they try to hire millennials?
Yeah, this goes a couple different ways, because if you look in past history, we were all entrepreneurs at a certain point, right? So that natural craving to have autonomy in the workplace. It also goes into self-determination theory in the workplace. So that's always there. In terms of the upper management, what they should be concerned about, well, here's the thing. With millennials, as you probably know, we have a lot more like horizontal peer pressure. If you look at social media, you can curate your life to make it seem amazing, but you probably behind the scenes are crying every weekend, not like, totally a lot. But the thing is that sort of reality does have a psychological effect on people thinking, and I'm saying younger individuals who are a lot more on that platform, that the workplace is X when it's really Y.
Right.
And a lot of the leaders and managers who see younger employees who have those ambitions is providing the actual context of what they don't know. It's like, okay, want to be the CTO? Great. Here's what the steps that need to happen in 2 years. And then once you have that context, when you're younger, you say, okay, great, now I have more of a solid path. And they start trekking down and realize, oh, wait, this is going to take the 10, 20 years that they actually told me not to. But it's a process. And it's providing that, because I would say you seem like relatively close in age to me. It's like when you first graduate college, you don't see all those barriers. You don't know what you don't know. And it's a matter of bringing clarity to that. And then once you're in the system, once you're there working, then you start to realize, okay, this is why it takes this long to rise. And it's just, do
you think that the process that millennials don't really understand, do you think that keeps them back from pursuing certain things, or even keeps people who are from the baby boomer generation, for example, from putting them in positions where they can actually test their knowledge and test the process and get an understanding for themselves?
I don't think that sort of attitude will like backfire in a way. I think it's the number one thing that managers need is an employee who's intrinsically motivated.
Right.
That's huge. And if you have that, you can do a lot with it. But unfortunately, a lot of managers see like, oh, the millennial wants to be, or this younger employee, because it's Generation Z, they're 23 years old and under.
Right.
They want to be this high position in a very short period of time. That's amazing.
Yeah.
They want to do something. They want to actually grow. Like, wow. Like I can tell you, like so many places like cringe at it, but then it takes that extra hand-holding and being able to direct that intrinsic motivation, because it's like fire. If you don't know how to handle it, it's going to fizzle out. It's
go all over the place.
Yeah, or it's just going to leave.
So what are some of the top things that, one, drive millennials to perform well? And how do you think companies can make adjustments for that? Because we kind of have like hiring and, especially established companies in a box, in a bottle, and we hire according to set standards and policies. But with the new generations coming on, they have different things that they want, different things that they're actually looking for that actually do matter.
Yes. Well, one of the biggest things I would say in here, and this goes again into psychology, is constant feedback. And a lot of older generations say, well, they want feedback all the time. And I'm like, yes, it's like if you're running in the desert without any water, you're going to want to know where the nearest village is so you can get water. It's like the same thing in the workplace. If you want to go fast, you're going to need that feedback. And it sort of goes against the paradigm of the 360 review. That's outdated psychologically. It's a trash. It's awful. And people cringe about it. So first off, it's the feedback, right? Making sure that's a faster cycle. In terms of the other things in the workplace, in terms of what to look for the younger generation, I would say, well, they always want to say like, well, the commuter benefits and this and that. And I would say, no. That's all supplementary. You can do studies on HR and you can figure that all out for your, because sometimes like you have construction workers, they might not care about the commute because they have a truck, right? So there are so that I would say I wouldn't want to go into. I would focus more on the psychology of it and say individual managers. And I would say, what we talked about earlier, having the sort of context of what it takes to get to the next level. Breaking down skills into milestones. Like, what sort of skills do you need to be qualified for the next level? I can't tell you how many government companies I've talked to, private companies I've talked to who failed to do that. And you know what? It's hard, because I actually had an employee who wanted to be on an emailing team, and English wasn't his first language. And I told him, well, this is what you're going to need is you need to speak English. But that's very hard to break down for someone. Like, it's like gaps. And then I said, okay, here's a learning course. You need to score this level. Then once you get to that point, then your manager and I will sit down. We'll give you a test, and then we'll see how you do. If you score this high above it, you're on board. So you have to break it down to individual steps, and that's for a lot of places very hard. And when there's bureaucracy, which is, hey, everyone in the past has done this for 5 years. This is the protocol. This is the way it has to be. And if you say, well, you shift it around and say it's up to the individual, then that breaks the whole system. So in a way, the system actually can impede a lot of people on that. And that's not like millennials. That's just people wanting to have control over their lives.
In terms of culture, in terms of tools, in terms of the workspace, what do you think the millennial workplace of the future will actually look like?
This is a very complex one, because I'm really kind of obsessed about the future and like, are we going to be taking over by artificial intelligence? And one of the biggest things that people have to look for in the workplace, which is quite interesting, is that a lot of people would say, well, full inclusion, everyone's happy, this and that. And I would say there's actually something that's coming our way, which is very unexpected. And that is when we look at, say, the paradigm of inclusion, because that's very closely associated with millennials. Like, everyone's like, fantastic. It goes off of the notion that there's even distribution, and that the hiring, there's bias, right? That's sort of the thing. If the hiring was fixed, then you get more of a representation in the company. Maybe not horizontal-wise, because that comes into the individual managers and those opportunities, but at least in the company, it would be the same. So looking into that research, I found that any sort of human interaction with interviews is inherently biased, which means then, are people okay with having, say, artificial intelligence and different sort of systems that have no human involvement to hire people?
Wow. Okay.
Right? That's going to be a really big thing. And, you might say, well, that's too far off. Check this out. So for colleges, they've done studies where they had a board, they had the application, and the people would pick, okay, this person, that person's good. A couple people in the statistics department said, well, we think we can do it better. So they created, I think it's a regressional. They statistically figured out, they measured 3 things on the candidate's resume, and they graded the individual one. And they say, okay, if anyone meets these criteria, they should be in the university. After the board went through and the actual statisticians sat down and did the study, not only did the stats that they had reject all the people that the board rejected, right? It had the perfects on there. It actually better correlated who would do well in the university.
Wow.
Based off of things that were stats, not the, well, I feel this person can do really well in the world. It was like zero emotion. And that's a really big thing in the workplace. So when it comes down to inclusion, it's like, I think that's going to be part of it, is that we're going to have a really big question of artificial intelligence and where do humans really get involved in that? Because that's where things are being pushed for in these different movements. So
that is super interesting.
Yeah, no, it's fascinating. I'm just surprised not a lot of people kind of like dig one step deeper at like, here's the movement's purpose. How well does that do it? And then what is the current methods right now? And it's like, well, if it completely shifts like that, are we really okay with that? And you know what? Even with me knowing that, I still want to interview them in person, knowing it's flawed. Because I'm like, I just want to know who they are,
Yeah.
Super.
Awesome. So you obviously have a lot of things that you could be doing, and you've done your research in millennials in the workplace, which absolutely shows. If you weren't educating companies on millennials, what would you be doing? What are your other things that might be on your bucket list to do?
Oh my gosh. Well, there's talking about generations and getting more into the future side of things. And that's sort of been asked. Same with the millennial thing. Someone's like, can you talk about blockchain and cryptocurrency? Being a UC Berkeley graduate, like a UC Berkeley undergrad in computer science and building a tech company, it kind of fell into my lap. I'm like, sure. So there's that. But I think you're going more like, what's Jeff behind the scenes? Here's a couple things. Still compete in weightlifting.
Okay.
So I'm still doing that, trying to stay active there. And I would say other than that, I'm really boring.
Do you still play the piano?
Oh yeah, no, I just got done early today. I was just playing the third movement of Moonlight Sonata, trying to really get that down. I even thought of like involving piano in some of my keynote talks, but I'm like, you got to be really good.
Yeah.
You know, you can't be like, hey, I'm just gonna suck, and like they're happy with it. You have to be like amazing. Plus, how do you get that really intertwined? But yeah, I still play. There's a down the hall here. There's a Steinway like grand piano.
Oh wow.
Super fun.
Awesome. Hopefully one day we'll get to hear you play in, real life.
Oh gosh, maybe.
All right. Well, Jeff, it's been really, really awesome to talk to you. Thank you so much for sharing your insights. Where can people find out more about you, your speaking engagements, your blog posts online? Yeah.
So jeffjbutler.com.
Okay.
Here's the big thing. Don't forget the J. jeffbutler.com is really ticked off at me because everyone's emailing him and he's like,
yes, I saw that.
I was like, change your domain. And I'm like, yo, maybe I should buy it.
Yeah.
But he doesn't have a website. So just jeffjbutler.com. Okay. And I have a blog on there that goes over what I'm looking over, and then my schedule and everything's up on there.
Awesome. Jeff, thank you so much for taking the time out of your schedule to talk to us. We really do appreciate your time and sharing all of your insights with our audience.
All right. No problem. Glad to be here.
Awesome. Thank you guys for listening to this interview. For these and other interviews and topics, you can visit us at techfunnel.com. You can connect with us across social on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, and Instagram. Thank you.